In the mid-1980s, something terrified the CIA deep inside the Soviet Union. The CIA's best spies, men who had been feeding secrets to Washington for years, stopped answering their handlers. Dead drops remained full. Emergency signals went dark, and one by one, the agency's eyes in Russia were being gouged out. These weren't just arrests, they were executions. General Dmitry Polyakov, the jewel in the CIA's crown, was strapped to a stretcher and wheeled into a room with a single drain in the floor. He didn't scream. He knew why he was there. Back in Virginia, the panic was absolute. The CIA realized the KGB wasn't guessing. They had a list. Someone inside the building, someone walking the halls, drinking the coffee, and shaking hands was deciding who lived and who died. They called him the Mole, and he was just getting started. When you picture a super spy, you think of James Bond. Suave, calculated, dangerous. You don't think of Aldrich Rick Ames. He was a mid-level bureaucrat in the Soviet counterintelligence division. He was known for two things: drinking too much at lunch and falling asleep at his desk. He was sloppy. He was forgettable. He was the kind of guy who borrowed $10 and forgot to pay you. But by 1985, Rick Ames was desperate. He was drowning in debt from a messy divorce and a new girlfriend who had expensive taste. He needed $50,000, and he knew exactly where to get it. April 16th, 1985, the day the music stopped. Ames walked right into the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. He didn't have a complex plan. He just handed a frantic note to the front desk guard. It was an offer. I have names, you have money. Let's make a deal. The KGB couldn't believe their luck. They thought it was a trap. Why would the CIA's head of Soviet counterintelligence just walk in? But then, Ames gave them the big dump. On June 13th, Ames handed over the identities of virtually every Soviet intelligence officer working for the CIA: Valery Martinov, Sergei Motorin, Dmitry Polyakov. He sold them all. The price, $50,000 to start, eventually $2.5 million. While men were being tortured in Moscow basements, Rick Ames was fixing his teeth. He bought a Jaguar. He started wearing tailored Italian suits. He paid for his house in cash. And the scariest part? No one at the CIA noticed. He was hiding in plain sight. He told his co-workers his new wife had family money from Colombia. It was a lie a child could check, but nobody checked. Why? Because it's hard to believe the office drunk is actually a mastermind of death. But the bodies were piling up. The CIA couldn't ignore the silence anymore. They formed a secret task force, a tiny team tucked away in the basement, led by two tenacious women, Sandy Grimes and Jean Verdefoya. For years they were chasing ghosts. They looked for electronic bugs. They blamed bad luck. They suspected everyone except their colleague, Rick. But by 1991, they had eliminated every other possibility. It had to be an insider. Then came the breakthrough. Sandy Grimes was staring at a timeline of Rick Ames's bank deposits, and she saw it, the pattern. Every time Rick Ames had a business lunch with a Soviet diplomat known as the Porpoise, he would walk into his bank the next morning and deposit huge sums of cash. $9,000, $15,000, $20,000. It was clockwork. He wasn't even laundering it. He was just depositing it. Now, the CIA had a name, but they didn't have proof. If they moved too soon, Ames would clam up. Or worse, he'd flee to Moscow. The FBI was brought in to tighten the noose. They bugged his house. They tapped his phone. They even stole his trash. In the garbage, they found a yellow sticky note. It was a draft of a message to the KGB. He was demanding more money. They also discovered his signal. When Ames was ready to meet, He didn't use high-tech radios. He used a piece of white chalk. He would draw a simple horizontal mark on a mailbox at the corner of 37th and R Street. It meant, "I'm ready to sell." But then the clock ran out. In early 1994, the FBI learned that Ames was scheduled for an official CIA trip to Moscow. The agents knew the truth. If Rick Ames got on that plane, he wasn't coming back. He would disappear into Russia forever. They couldn't wait for the perfect moment anymore. They had to take him down. In broad daylight, February 21st, a cold morning in Arlington, Ames pulled his Jaguar out of the driveway, heading to the agency to finalize his travel plans. He turned onto a quiet residential street and saw a red light. He thought it was roadwork. He slowed down. Suddenly, the construction workers pulled out MP5 submachine guns. Agents swarmed the car. They ripped the door open. Ames didn't fight. He didn't run. He looked at the FBI agents with pure arrogance and said, "What is this? Is this a joke?" It wasn't a joke. In his briefcase, they found classified cables ready for delivery. In his house, they found piles of cash bags of jewelry and a letter from the KGB thanking him for his service. Aldrich Ames was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is currently rotting in a maximum security cell in Indiana